So while a few more are gathering and making some notes in the chat, I just want to do a quick check-in about what we're gonna do today. So many of you have been on these calls before. I'm so glad to see you again. And if there's some newcomers, just sorry, I shouldn't try to read the Zoom chat while I'm trying to talk to you guys, because you guys are writing such interesting things. So what we do in this hour is in a second, I'm going to take us into a grounding meditation. We will be studying, revering, considering a single poem. And today's poem is by the fantastic David Whyte. So there'll be a little meditation. We'll hear David Whyte read the poem, a recorded version of him. And then Eddie from the On Being Project and the Civil Conversations team will lead a conversation about a little bit more about the poem, inspired, I think, by David's conversation with Krista. And then we'll do some writing, and then we'll do some sharing, and then we'll wave at each other, sad to be leaving each other, and then we'll go back to our day. And I'll have a little bit of kind of administrative stuff to talk about at the end. So, and we are recording this, just so you know, and we'll be sharing it back to everyone and to our broader world. So if something about that makes you uncomfortable and you want to be a little less public, then you can take care of that with your own settings. So my name is Stacy Sims, and I'm the founder of thewell.world. It includes several programs, and one of them is Mindful Poetry Moments. This is our second year of practicing mindful poetry with the On Being Project. So my relationship to the On Being Project has been, like a lot of folks, as an active listener and lover, feeling like whenever I heard Krista interviewing someone, I felt like they were speaking to my secret soul, my secret understanding of how beautiful the world could be. And it was always very communal, but it was like me in the car with my radio and them. But you sort of understood broadly that there was a world of people also connected to this. So a few years ago, On Being held a gathering where folks were invited to go into the redwoods to sit together as humans and sort of do On Being in real life. And I share with you that because David Whyte did both the beginning poem and ending poem. Is that right, Eddie? Do you remember? Yeah, beginning and ending. And first of all, the first day, it was like me in my chair, David Whyte 2 away from me, and his wife right here next to me. So already I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It was so exciting. And then when he got up to do the first poem and the last poem, I tease a little bit that it was like the Disney Twitter-pated audience with everybody like with little like hearts flying out of their eyes and ears. And he really was just the beautiful space holder of kind of everything we wanted to feel in that weekend, which was beautiful. So fast forward 6 months or so, there was a recording of the time we were all together, played on the air, and they played David Whyte's first reading of this poem. And I just burst into tears when I heard it, because I realized that the poem itself, oh, I got the chills, the poem itself and his like shamanic kind of voice didn't end, like he created this net around all experience, sort of past, present, and then future, of still being held in that space. So when we did our first mindful poetry moments, this was the first selection of our first mindful poetry moments last year. So Abby, would you mind playing for us the beautiful David Whyte piece by David reading, and I'm going to do the meditation based on this piece.
Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone. As if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely, even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you courage. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you. And the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. The tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you.
Thank you, Abby. So before we move it over to Eddie, I'm going to do just a quick meditation to ground us into this beautiful moment with this beautiful poem. So we want to take a second wherever we are and reorganize our bodies for attentiveness. So you might want to try to find your feet on the floor, or if you're seated cross-legged or in some other posture, bring your attention to your feet. And you might even do a little bit of pressing a little bit into the floor. So you're feeling your feet and you're feeling your seat. You're grounding down. And then the spine is that alertness. If you find the roof of the mouth and you move your tongue to the back of the roof of the mouth and kind of lift the spine from there, that's where we as infants would suckle. It's the first spine lift. It's the first reaching we do. And notice where you feel your breath moving in your body in this moment. And I'm going to invite you to put down the weight of your aloneness. Feel the yield of softening. We can feel the weight of our bones. We can imagine and sense the release of our muscles. And we can tap in to our own awareness of all the connective tissue in our bodies. This vast neural netting that wraps every bit of our interior, interconnected. Feel that netting soften. A lot of our habituated tension and belief systems, it is believed, are held as much in this neural netting as anywhere else. And what if that is the weight that we carry? The weight of our aloneness, the weight of our not being seen. So can you feel in your own physical body that softening? You've put down the weight of your aloneness, and you're feeling that everything is waiting for you. Grounded, soft, and excited. Deepen your breath. Coming back to this moment in time. Nice job, everyone. I'm always particularly interested in our young friends who are doing such a good job of listening and trying all of these activities with us. So thank you very much, Emily and family. So I'd like to turn it over to Eddie for the next part of our conversation.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all this afternoon. Stacy, thank you for that grounding. I feel like I could have, with the way that you were describing the ways that we can relax, I felt like I could have just floated off into bliss. That was wonderful. So I did a little bit of reflection on this, and I'm going to try something just a little bit different, which is just thinking in terms of some stories that this brought up for me, and tying it back also with something that David White had shared in his interview with Krista at On Being. So the first thing that I just want to invite us to do is, if you would like, feel free to turn off your camera. If you could also leave it on if you like seeing people, but I know this poem is a lot about recognizing what's around you. And I do recognize how Zoom can kind of pull us in, and we can get sort of brought into this digital world and taken away from our physical surroundings. So feel free to turn off video if you'd like. The first story I'm sharing with you today is a story about my sister. She was having a particularly bad day during a vacation we took. And we were in a van with my sister, my brother, my parents, and she was just rude to everybody in the car. My mom, my dad, my aunt was with us. And she got on the phone with her friend because a friend calls, and all of a sudden she's the nicest person you could imagine. I mean, just super sweet with her friend. Hangs up the phone, comes back into the car, and is just rude all over again. And we're a little upset because we're like, this is our vacation. You know, what's wrong with you? And she's even ruined it for herself, but she's ruined it for us too. So my mom says, why do you think that you can be so nice with your friends and not so nice with your family? And she says, she sort of snapped out of her bad mood for a bit. And she says, you know, that's a great question. I think the reason why is because I know that you all will always be there for me. And I feel like I can just be that way. And for some reason, I don't think that it matters as much, but I probably shouldn't, because you all are the ones that are always here for me, and I should be nice to you all for that reason, which I thought was a really nice sort of growing moment for my sister. But it was a moment too that I think it came up for me when I saw this poem, because it was a recognition that there are things in life that can make us recoil, things in life that can make us pull back, and we can be sort of reluctant to fully engage. This poem is really hospitable. It allows for something small and something big. So the poem talks about tiny hidden transgressions. And in the next sentence, it says to feel abandoned, which is not so little. With my sister, that fight with her friend, you know, was a significant moment for her in that moment. Of course, beyond, it wasn't all that significant. But there are these other tender, difficult, vulnerable moments that I think we go throughout our lives. Unforeseen turns of events, accidents, age even, and ill health, with COVID, you know, loss of loved ones. And objects, this is a poem of objects. They have a role to play in this dance. So I used to be a chaplain in hospice. And one of the things I would do when I would visit patients and families is I would look at the objects in their homes, and I would look at pictures, and I would ask them about them. And inevitably, objects and pictures led to stories. Stories of what folks had been through, what they had seen, experiences they had had, stories about what they had been experiencing in this moment, and even dreams informing of where they wanted to go. It's an ongoing question of this poem, that sometimes the objects that are around us actually ask us to reckon with realities that we'd rather not see. Something David White spoke towards in his interview at On Being was how do we overcome our resistance to life and really engage with it and enter into a conversation with it. And so that line, all the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. He says, he remarks that a bird doesn't wake up one day and say, I'm really tired of being a goldfinch. I'd rather try being a turkey today, maybe have a little bit more heft and take a trot, hang over a fence and then leap. No, like goldfinches don't do that, but human beings, we can really sometimes refuse to be ourselves and put on masks, pretend to be somebody other than ourselves, and even get so good at practicing that we forget that we're pretending. And this speaks to the difference between, in some ways, I think, loneliness and solitude. Loneliness has this weight to it. And putting down the weight, this poem says, loneliness is riddled with resistance, where solitude, on the other hand, has something of connection. We're alone, but perhaps we're not lonely. We're engaged. In some ways, we're maybe even enjoying the company of ourselves and our surroundings. It's difficult to engage with this resistance. We might not feel ready sometimes. In hospice work, it was really interesting. A lot of the folks would tell me, don't wait. If there's something that you feel like you need to do, go and do it. And yet these same folks in conversation, there were things we had to speak about that they felt like they weren't ready to speak about, and plans we needed to make that were hard to engage. So it deals with dreams, and moving in the direction of dreams, but it also deals with mending, tending to what feels raw, what feels broken, and that might also be relationships, and that stuff is harder. Ira Byock, who's a palliative care physician that I love, he does this with this landscape in some ways. Things that we need to say in relationships. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. And I love you. And that those four things, I'm going to stop my video so you all can hear me. So those four things, in case you didn't hear them. Can you all hear me now? Can I get thumbs up if you can? Okay, great. So those four things, thank you, I love you, please forgive me, I forgive you. Sometimes those four things might even seem a little boring. They almost might even seem at times to state the obvious. But stating the obvious can sometimes be the thing we need to do. Not many people will move away from somebody saying, I love you, or thank you to them. And just like my sister with my mom, there are moments we need to tend to the folks that we always know will be there, and to the objects around us, tend to them as well. So coming back to this poem, as a celebration of objects and the role that they play, we're encouraged to return to the world of things, and that returning to this world of physical things can be even healing. And if we listen, they can speak to us before even a big event is needed to wake us up to a deeper, more adventurous, courageous, and compassionate engagement. And the poem says that we must note these familiar things, which is, notice, like familiar has familia and family, familiar things. We must note this grand array, which has something to do with writing, noting, recording, awareness, and noticing. And so in today's writing, I'd like us to practice this. A friend of mine taught me something called florilegium. It's a practice of collecting excerpts and other writings, and it literally means to gather flowers. And so in this poem, we have mention of a grand array. So this, display, range of objects, something common like the soap dish, the window latch, stairs, doors, the tiny speaker in your phone. Let's gather some of the flowers of our surroundings, if we can start just a little bit here. And let's use the chat box, and we can play around with this. So looking around your room, your surroundings, wherever it is that you are, what are some of the things around you? And maybe experiment with giving some description of them that makes them unique. So my shoes, for instance, I could say they're shoes, but I could also say they're white shoes, or I could say they're very much in their last season. They're the shoes that rub against the backs of my ankles and never really became soft. What objects do you notice? The blue bottle on the sill. Scarf-covered lamp to soften the light. The purple Siberian iris in the window. A new old book that I can't put down. Ooh, a new old book. I love that. Very full bookshelf. Clay pot bearing, oops, gathering of shells collected by my window. The silent chime. My eternally knotted earbuds. I love that. A coaster made by my daughter with her monogram, her initials that I gave her. A menorah with dried wax left over from winter. A note from my sister. This is great. So as these continue to come in, I want us to think next of what these things are doing just by being there. So the poem mentions ordinary examples, like the kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink, but it also gives us some disorienting and somewhat magical sets of examples. Stairs as mentor of things to come, almost like an oracle, right? Doors and frightening and inviting. The tiny speaker in your phone is a dream ladder to divinity. So the particularities of our lives give these things meaning. What might they be saying even? What are the objects around you doing? If you were quiet enough to listen, what might they say? You can use verbs here. And if we'll use the chat one more time for this section, then I'll guide us into our individual writing. Ooh, an air conditioner is panting. Blinking dreams. The shell tells me that the ocean is still alive and speaking. Love that. An old worn book awaits a third reader. A highlighter shouting to be used, impatient. A rug becoming a bed. The bull rings a bell, taking me back to a November day I spent in Vermont. Yes. So the staple remover is holding line and shadow, teeth bared. Nice. My lamp says you can shine a harsh light or soft light on anything. So now for our writing activity. This is great to see. Lots of inspiration here. I love David Mitchell. I love to see his book is whispering to you, Stacy. So now for our writing activity. I'd like us to just continue to play around more with noting, doing a sort of florilegium of objects around you, gathering flowers of things and what they're doing and saying. And if it's helpful, I also want to put here in the chat box those 4 things that Ira says are oftentimes things we need to say. There was a piece that was written recently called New York, I Forgive You. And it was so lovely in the way that it was a remembering of New York before we all closed down, and listed basically all the things of New York that the author forgave it for. But maybe with these objects, if there are things you want to say in the form of forgive me, or I forgive you, or thank you, or I love you, feel free to use those as a prompt. And yeah, be open to the play and sense of humor that can come from letting a potato speak, for instance. You can be playful with this. After all, we're bringing them into conversation as casually as we would family or familiar friends. Stacy, how much time do we have for writing?
So I'm going to go ahead and put on, what time is it? I'm going to do 12 minutes, and I'll chime us back in if that's okay.
Okay, that sounds great. Happy writing.
Thank you. Just so everyone's aware, we're at about 5 minutes right now. 5 minutes left, sorry. Couple more minutes. So go ahead and come to the end of your poem or sentence or thought. Eddie, that was such potent prompt. That was a lot to work with there. So Eddie, why don't you continue the conversation and the invitation to listen to some things that might have been written in those moments?
Yeah, and as before, this is a time for just sharing in the larger group. And the process for that is if you would like to read what you've written or share a reflection on what you read or what this poem brought up in you, feel free to just type your name here in the chat, and I will call folks in order of the names. All right, Mahit.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for doing this again. I'm so glad to be here. Okay. When I look up at the room, seeing the objects I have created and collected in the last few years, I find myself in memory lanes and experiences. But when I see the last line of this poem, everything is waiting for you, I find myself back in India 7 years ago, listening to songs by Frank Sinatra about New York and Chicago. Something about that time, a time before I was born, was waiting for me to come back, to come home. Surprising it might seem, but places I hadn't been before, songs I hadn't heard before, were calling me home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahit. Lauren?
Thank you. All right, a little one. Blue, green, yellow, orange woven squares from a wedding in Guatemala. The places where I place my cup each day, magic carpets in miniature. Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward gazing at one another on the wall, torn from an old rolling stone, reminding me how to love, using only my eyes. The tip of my pen is my secret self. My round kitchen table is a life raft. To propagate this plant, wait until you see a tiny button. Cut it quickly. Give it to a friend on the street. The one you know is looking for ways to brighten the corners. It's for you.
Thank you, Lauren. Troy.
Gosh, those are it's beautiful. I just want to savor it. I met myself this weekend, sweating in the backyard with 22 of 28 fence post holes dug, alone with an orange 2-man gas-powered auger who was asking for forgiveness for not hitting the goal. The echoing enoughness took us all by surprise. We winked, the orange-rented auger and I, realizing the moment for what it was, a present to open, a body of ground with its roots and stone conspiring to remind us that it's always co-conspiracy. Upon returning home, showering and resting the sore back, I find myself back inside, joined by the orange washi tape holding 8.5 by 11 white sheets to the white wall, inviting me like perforated dotted lines into a manila coloring book to slowly tear open this wall enclosing our conditioned air. Helped by the swing line staple remover with her bared snarl, shaking off that inner look of we could break out any time, and just doing it. Thanks.
Thank you. I see the staple remover returned as a co-conspirator in the poem.
Exactly.
Stacy.
All right, guys. Please forgive me, Elena Ferrante, Homer, and Ta-Nehisi Coates. I have spurned you for mysteries and the true crime of true crime. I forgive you, broken ankle bracelet, saggy curtains, and dead orchid number 72, for not holding up your end of the beauty bargain. Thank you, wooden fence, incense, and Tibetan bowls, for wrapping and mapping my present moment. I love you, Buddha, origami dollar, and ceramic white dove, for assembling as a quiet shrine to the memory of my mother. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Emily Little.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see some of you who've been here past weeks. Before I read, I wanted to just say a quick thank you to all of you for everything that I've gotten out of this over the last little bit. For the past 2 weeks, which is like since we saw each other last, I have been, I'm a nurse, but haven't been working because I'm a mom. And so I've been volunteering at a nursing home here where I live, taking care of coronavirus positive Alzheimer's patients. So this poem really struck me. And I just have really been sort of using the well from these poetry classes while I've been at this nursing home. So thank you guys. It's really been a huge piece of support for me. So Anna's back is towards me, her knees curled up. She has no covers on. Her shoes are on, though. She looks as though her eyes closed the moment her head touched the pillow, as if she meant to go somewhere else, but laid down. I remember all 3 of my kids napping this way. They'd grown so tired, played so hard, crawled on something, my mother's chaise lounge, the rag rug near their bed, and sunk deeply into their body and deeply into sleep. No covers, shoes on. An abstract painting hangs above Anna, an abstract expression of someone's love for her. It is red and easy to look at. I learned Dan made it for her, one of her sons. She says there are 2, but when I ask him which son he is, he tells me there is only one. So he must be the painter. And I say, there is only one of you, and I'm only 3 days in, so I don't know all the pieces of these people's puzzles. But I do love your painting that hangs above your mother, even as we all hang in coronavirus, blowing in the wind, hoping to drop down together again into our right places. I gently nudge Anna, open curtains to late afternoon sunlight, coax her to sit up, tell her it's time for dinner, reminding her who I am, that I'll join her for a little while. Even if I never become an object, a picture in her room, I will have traveled with her, even if for just this small, important moment.
Thank you, Emily, for your poem, for your work, for sharing. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you, guys.
Sarah.
Echoing her thanks. Thank you so much. So this is mine. Thank you, red DVD case, for holding my book so gently, glass door light open, shielding and inviting both. Thank you, pile of sheet music, for existing, for welcoming the sound of music, for drawing my fingers to keys. Thank you, elegant silver bowl, for being there, small but somehow majestic, quiet, dignified. You contain multitudes. You evoke an ancient, carefree, assertive aunt. You tell me my mother, her, she. You speak of times long ago, of Mitchells, of Mexico, of gentility from which I'm so disconnected, of old America. You make me wonder how much atrocity runs in my veins. You bring me connectedness to Unitarians, to ritual, to candle lighting, to candle extinguishing, to the word chalice, the meaning of which I'm still not quite certain. Thank you. But also, what have you contained over the years? Red apples look worthy of you, perhaps some green peppers. Round, firm fruits of the land, brightly colored, bananas, mango, grapes, the stuff of still lifes, the art of art and appetite, an incredible exhibition contained in the coffee table book upon which my eyes now rest. You have seen so many years. Here you are now, elegant, majestic, small, still. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I love that question. What have you contained over the years? Let's see, Geraldine.
Thank you. I can hardly believe I put my name in, so.
Oh, I'm excited you did.
We'll see how I do. This is for my social fabric weavings, some of which are behind me. Sorry. Please forgive me for making you wait so long to come into being. Thank you for weaving me into the fabric of so many different kinds of characters. Young, old, male, female, non-binary, and more. Human and not. I forgive you for not easily fitting into a category or a box or a description. You ended up being too big to condense. I love you for becoming something more than just my idea lived with for so many years. I love you for your simplicity that creates connection within, between, and among the hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of weavers, the ones who bear the weight of their experience, the ones who bear their souls in search of, in longing for, in surrender to, communion with the everyday divine.
Thank you, Geraldine. I'm glad you shared. I love that line. I love you for your simplicity. And thank you, Mahib, Lauren, Troy, Stacy, Emily, Sarah, for sharing. Also, I'm sorry for anybody that didn't get a chance to share, but I do want to hand over to Stacy so that she can close our time together, and we'll have one more reading of the poem before we say goodbye.
Yes. So a couple of things. Abby's going to send out an email to everyone with a reminder to, if you share your poems that you've written, we'll put them in our legacy place that'll include this video and then the poems that have been shared that we share out at the well, and we'll share back to you. So you can take a look at it. And if for some reason you miss Abby tries to get it done within a day, but if you write your poem 3 days later, send it. We'll add it in. It's a living document, so please do that. You should have gotten an email about likely got an email about the book that we're putting together that we're super excited about. So it's probably a few weeks away from being able to be mailed out to you, and so we'll keep communicating, but just know that we have a physical book from our time that we spent together with the 5 weeks of mindful poetry moments. And that's $10 a book. It's going to be 75 plus pages, a lovely, lovely record of our time together. And we're going to do a PDF version of it. So you'll have access to it always without having to purchase a book. We're meeting again on June 24th. We'll send you information about that. So once a month through the summer, and then when we figure out the Poetry Unbound schedule, we'll be following that. So we'll let you know. I guess I want to say I'm just so, I don't know, I guess I really missed you guys a lot. I feel super weepy. It's always gorgeous, and this was as potent as any of the gatherings yet. So thank you, everyone. I suppose one other thing I would say is that at the Well, we try to, if there's information about gatherings or opportunities or things that we think would be useful to our broader audience, we try to do that. So if you have something that you're doing or thinking of, just send it our way, and we'll try to make sure that we share it with our communities. Abby, anything else I'm forgetting?
No, I think you got everything. But I'll also put my email in the chat box if anyone is just ready to send me their poems before I send out the recap email.
All righty. Well, thank you, everyone. And I'm going to turn it back to Eddie for the final reading of the poem. And then I'll chime us out and we'll wave sadly at each other until next time.
All right, so once more, here's the poem, Everything is Waiting for You by David White, after Derek Mahan. Your greatest mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, the way the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come, and the doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you, and the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing, even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you.
Goodbye, all you beautiful people.
Thank you, everyone.
Can't wait to connect in a month or sooner via email. Oh, Troy, who's your son?
Yeah, I'm Whitfield.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and friends. Yeah.
All right, friends.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Beautiful work, everybody.